The Galactic Council gave humanity exactly 72 hours to pay. If they failed, humanity would lose every legal right recognized by the galaxy. No protected borders, no trade, no diplomatic status, no ownership of planets, no representation before galactic law. In a single vote, the oldest civilization in the universe had decided that an entire species could simply be built for existing. Most civilizations celebrated, some laughed, others placed bets on how long humanity would survive after refusing to pay. Nobody expected humans to win, because the invoice they received was impossible. 999 quadrillion galactic credits. The largest tax bill ever issued in recorded history. 3 days later, with only 31 minutes remaining before the deadline, the Grand Treasury of the Galactic Union was overflowing with reporters. Every major news network in the galaxy was broadcasting live. The largest screen in the chamber displayed a single countdown. 0 hours 30 minutes and 58 seconds. Commentators smiled confidently. The human delegation has not arrived. As expected, they cannot pay. The Galactic Revenue Authority will officially seize Earth's legal status in less than 31 minutes. Across the audience, alien politicians exchanged satisfied smiles. Corporate leaders prepared investment contracts for Earth's future resources. Military officers quietly discussed who would patrol humanity's former space. Everything had already been decided. Or so they believed. High Commissioner Varric, director of the Galactic Revenue Authority, watched the countdown without emotion. For 42 years, no civilization had ever escaped one of his tax rulings. Empires had fallen, kings had surrendered, entire star systems had declared bankruptcy rather than challenge his authority. Today, humanity would become another example. He adjusted his uniform. Begin confiscation protocol. A young officer hesitated. Sir, there are still 30 minutes remaining. Varric never looked away from the clock. I know, they won't come. Far away, on planet Earth, panic had replaced normal life. Every television, every phone, every computer, displayed the same terrifying message. Galactic payment deadline time remaining. 0 hours 29 minutes and 41 seconds. Governments held emergency meetings. Scientists searched for impossible solutions. Financial markets collapsed. People filled the streets. For the first time in human history, humanity wasn't preparing for war. It was preparing to lose its legal existence. Then, in the middle of the chaos, a single black vehicle quietly stopped outside an old stone building. No police escort, no military convoy, no flashing lights. An ordinary man stepped out. Dark suit, simple briefcase, calm expression. He looked less like someone about to save humanity, and more like someone arriving early for work. An elderly security guard recognized him immediately. Elias. The man smiled politely. Morning, Mr. Harris. The old guard looked confused. Shouldn't you be at the emergency summit? Elias Ward gently shook his head. They've already done everything they can. He looked up toward the morning sky, now filled with distant alien ships. It's my turn. The guard frowned. Your turn to do what? Elias simply lifted the worn leather briefcase in his hand. Finish a promise. Before the guard could ask another question, Elias quietly walked inside the building. Deep beneath it, far below the streets, past steel doors that hadn't been opened in generations, he stopped before a massive circular vault. There were no electronic locks. No scanners. Only one sentence carved into ancient black stone. Open only when humanity stands alone. Elias placed his hand against the cold surface. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, the entire vault began to vibrate. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ancient mechanisms groaned back to life. The stone door slowly moved. A beam of brilliant golden light poured into the darkness. Inside, there was no mountain of gold. No advanced weapon. No secret supercomputer. Only a single crystal ledger resting on a black pedestal. Its surface glowed softly, as though it had been waiting. Waiting. For him. Elias carefully picked it up. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, unknown symbols ignited across its surface. At that exact same second, more than 50,000 light-years away, inside the Galactic Treasury, every system suddenly shut down. The countdown disappeared. The lights flickered. Then, for the first time in 12,000 years, the Prime Treasury intelligence awakened on its own. Across every screen in the chamber, a single line appeared. Original account holder has been detected. The message appeared on every screen inside the Grand Treasury. Original account holder has been detected. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. High Commissioner Varric stared at the glowing words. Then he laughed. A system malfunction. The room relaxed. Several officials nodded in agreement. The Prime Treasury intelligence had been operating continuously for over 12,000 years. A simple error was possible. Varric calmly folded his hands. Restart the system. An engineer immediately obeyed. The entire treasury briefly went dark. 3 seconds later, every screen illuminated once again. The same message remained. Original account holder has been detected. This time, another line appeared beneath it. Identity verification in progress. The smiles disappeared. Chief Engineer Solon frowned. That's impossible. No one activated the Prime AI. It woke up by itself. The enormous chamber slowly became silent. Because everyone knew one thing. The Prime Treasury intelligence never woke without authorization. Never. Meanwhile, deep beneath Earth, Elias quietly looked at the crystal ledger resting in his hands. The glowing symbols slowly rearranged themselves. Then, for the first time, they transformed into a language he could read. One sentence. Welcome back, account custodian. Elias closed his eyes. His grandfather had been right. It was all real. 12 years earlier, an old man lying in a hospital bed had placed a tiny brass key into Elias's hand. You'll think I'm crazy, but one day, they'll send humanity a bill. When that happens, go beneath the foundation, open the last vault, and never let anyone else carry the ledger. At the time, Elias thought the old man was simply telling stories. Now, every word had come true. Back inside the Galactic Treasury, the countdown continued. 0 hours 18 minutes and 14 seconds. News reporters whispered excitedly. What is happening? Has the human delegation finally responded? Before anyone could answer, every security alarm inside the Treasury suddenly shut off. The massive entrance doors slowly opened by themselves. Heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. Hundreds of cameras instantly turned. A single man entered. Dark suit, black briefcase. No guards, no soldiers, no politicians, no fear. Some reporters looked confused. Who is he? An alien officer checked the arrival registry. No official rank, no diplomatic escort, no military clearance. Varric smiled with amusement. So, humanity sends a civilian. The audience laughed. One billionaire whispered. They couldn't even afford a proper delegation. Ignoring every insult, Elias calmly walked across the enormous hall. His footsteps echoed through the silence. Each step brought him closer to the largest financial institution in the galaxy. Finally, he stopped directly in front of High Commissioner Varric. The commissioner looked down at him with obvious confidence. The deadline expires in 18 minutes. I hope your species brought 999 quadrillion credits. Elias smiled politely. I'm not here to make a payment. The chamber exploded with laughter. Even the reporters struggled to hide their smiles. Varric slowly shook his head. Then why are you here? Elias gently placed the old crystal ledger onto the treasury counter. I'm here to collect one. Silence. The laughter stopped instantly. Several officials leaned forward. The crystal suddenly released a pulse of golden light. Every terminal inside the treasury froze. The Prime Treasury intelligence spoke for the first time in 12,000 years. Its ancient voice echoed across the entire galaxy. Original galactic ledger detected. Founder-level authorization confirmed. The Prime AI paused. Then it spoke the sentence that made every living being inside the treasury forget how to breathe. Outstanding debt calculation has begun. The ancient voice echoed across every corner of the Galactic Treasury. Outstanding debt calculation has begun. Silence. Absolute silence. For 12,000 years, the Prime Treasury intelligence had processed taxes, trade agreements, interstellar loans, the financial history of the entire galaxy. Never once had it calculated a debt owed by the galaxy itself. High Commissioner Varick's confident expression slowly disappeared. He stepped toward the crystal ledger. Scan it. Immediately. Dozens of engineers rushed forward. The most advanced scanners in existence surrounded the ancient crystal. Seconds later, every scanner shut itself down. One by one, without explanation, Chief Engineer Solon stared at the results. Impossible. The ledger isn't rejecting our scanners. It's rejecting our authority. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Varick's voice hardened. There is no financial document older than the Galactic Union. Elias calmly looked at him. That's because this isn't a Galactic Union document. It existed before the Union. Several historians in the audience suddenly stood. One elderly professor slowly adjusted his glasses. No, it can't be. He walked closer to the glowing crystal. His hands began shaking. I've only seen these symbols once. Where? A young reporter asked. The professor swallowed. In Forbidden History, the Founders' Era. The room became quiet again. Meanwhile, the Prime Treasury intelligence continued processing. Golden streams of ancient data flowed across the massive holographic ceiling. Thousands, then millions, then billions, of forgotten financial records began appearing. Trade agreements, emergency relief funds, planet reconstruction grants, star system stabilization projects. Every document carried the same authorization. A single symbol, the same symbol glowing on Elias's crystal ledger. Varick frowned. What exactly am I looking at? Elias answered quietly. The first Galactic Treasury. Confused whispers filled the room. The first? What? The treasury you're standing in isn't the original. It's the replacement. Nobody spoke. One council economist laughed nervously. That's impossible. Our financial system has always existed. Elias slowly shook his head. No, the first one collapsed 12,000 years ago. The Prime AI suddenly interrupted. Historical verification confirmed. Every screen changed. An ancient recording appeared. Stars burned across the darkness. Entire civilizations were collapsing. Trade routes had vanished. Banks were empty. Governments were failing. The narrator spoke. Year 1 of the galactic financial collapse. Gasps echoed across the treasury. Every historian recognized the event. The greatest economic disaster ever recorded. But the recording continued, showing something that had never appeared in modern history books. A small blue world, Earth, not with fleets, not with weapons, not with armies, with factories, shipyards, research stations, medical transports, supply convoys. Thousands of human vessels departed Earth in every direction, delivering food, power generators, medicine, construction equipment, resources, everything collapsing civilizations desperately needed. The recording ended. The Prime AI spoke again. Emergency recovery program successfully completed. Primary financier. The chamber waited. The answer appeared. Human civilization. One alien senator whispered. No. Another shook his head. History says humanity wasn't even spacefaring back then. The Prime AI answered immediately. Modern historical records are incomplete. The room froze. Then came the sentence that changed everything. 93% of Founder-era records were intentionally sealed. Even Elias looked surprised. He hadn't known that. Varick slowly stepped backward. If that's true, he looked at the crystal ledger. Then how much does the galaxy actually owe humanity? The Prime AI paused. Its calculations were still running. Across the enormous countdown display, the tax deadline disappeared forever. A new counter replaced it, calculating compound interest. Then, the number began rising so fast. No one could read it anymore. The number kept rising. Higher, higher, higher. Entire galaxies couldn't contain figures that large. Inside the Grand Treasury, nobody spoke. Every civilization, every empire, every banker, watched the impossible calculation. The Prime Treasury intelligence had been computing continuously for almost 3 minutes. Then, the numbers stopped. The silence became unbearable. High Commissioner Varick finally whispered, "Display the result." For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the Prime AI answered. "Request denied." Confused voices erupted throughout the chamber. Varick frowned. "Denied. I am the Supreme Revenue Commissioner. I outrank every financial authority in this building. The AI remained emotionless. Authority acknowledged. Authority insufficient. Gasps echoed across the treasury. No one, not even the chancellor, had ever been denied by the Prime AI. Varric's voice turned cold. Who has sufficient authority? The answer came instantly. The account custodian. Every eye slowly turned toward Elias Ward, the quiet human who had walked into the treasury carrying an old leather briefcase. The richest corporations in the galaxy, the most powerful governments, now waited for permission from one ordinary human. Elias looked at the glowing ledger. He took a slow breath. Display the balance. The Prime AI responded immediately. Command accepted. The central hologram disappeared. Darkness filled the chamber. Then, golden light exploded across the ceiling. One line appeared. Galactic Dead Report. Another line followed. Original creditor. Human civilization. Then, the final number materialized. It stretched across the entire chamber. So many digits, that the display had to continue onto a second screen. Nobody could even pronounce it. Silence. Then, the Prime AI spoke. Outstanding balance exceeds the total economic value of the Galactic Union by 417%. The room froze. One billionaire slowly dropped his glass. It shattered across the floor. No one noticed. An elderly historian collapsed into his chair. We've been bankrupt for 12,000 years. The Prime AI continued. Humanity has never owed an existence tax. All taxes issued to humanity are hereby declared illegal. Every tax invoice, every penalty, every sanction, every interest charge, every debt, erased. Across the galaxy, billions of government computers automatically updated. Humanity, tax exempt. The chamber remained silent. Then the AI delivered one final announcement. Debt collection procedure may now begin. Panic spread instantly. Council members began shouting. Corporate leaders demanded emergency recesses. Several ministers fainted. One governor screamed, "If humanity collects that debt, our governments will collapse." High Commissioner Varric slowly looked toward Elias. For the first time in his career, fear replaced confidence. "What do you want?" The entire galaxy waited for humanity's answer. Elias quietly closed the ancient ledger. He looked around the chamber. Not with anger, not with pride, but with disappointment. "My grandfather told me something," he said. "The value of a civilization isn't measured by what it can collect, but by what it chooses to forgive." He placed the ledger back into his briefcase. "I didn't come here to bankrupt the galaxy. I came here to remind it." Silence. The Prime AI asked, "Do you wish to forgive the debt?" Every living being held their breath. Elias smiled. "Yes, but under one condition." The AI waited. "No civilization will ever again charge another species simply for existing." For the first time in recorded history, the Prime Treasury intelligence paused. Then it answered. Condition accepted. Across every government in the galaxy, a new constitutional law appeared automatically. The right to exist shall never be taxed. The existence tax, the law that had terrified humanity, was erased forever. High Commissioner Varric slowly removed the insignia from his uniform. Without a single word, he placed it on the treasury floor. He knew his career had ended. The Chancellor stepped forward. He bowed his head toward Elias. Then, one by one, every representative in the chamber stood. Not because humanity had become the richest civilization, but because one ordinary human had chosen mercy when he possessed the legal right to own the financial future of the entire galaxy. Years later, history books would remember only one sentence. Not the size of the debt, not the amount forgiven, only this: the galaxy tried to charge humanity for existing, and humanity paid with forgiveness. The end. Thanks for watching. If you love epic sci-fi stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to HFY Sci-Fi for more unforgettable adventures across the galaxy. See you in the next story.